Hey YouTube, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video for you. And today we're taking a look at the Massdrop Ferum Forge collaboration built by We Knives. This is the Gent, and I've got to say, of the number of collaborations that Massdrop has done with Ferum Forge, I like this design the best. Now this is definitely too small for me. This guy is visiting, so it's not my knife, but I've got to say, other than the size, I am very, very impressed with this knife. And if I could, you know, if someone from Massdrop is watching this or Ferum Forge, if you could do this exact same knife just with about a 3.5 inch blade and, you know, 4 3/4 inch handle or so, I would be in love. Now, as it stands, this is still a pretty cool knife. And for many of you watching, I know that you guys like the smaller knives and you've often requested that I would do more smaller knives. And I will try. I've got a few smaller knives that are actually on the docket here in the next little while. So let's take a look at this knife. Overall, I will say this, I am very impressed with this knife, even though it's much too small for me. And this knife is actually, to my mind, much too small, not just a little too small. And so I would never buy this knife. I would never, you know, I've carried it for review purposes, but I would never like choose to carry a knife of this size. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into all of the stuff that you want to know about this so that you can see if this is a knife for you, even though it's probably not the knife for me. So 6 7/8 is the overall size here, 2 15/16, so just under 3 inches of blade length, 3 15/16, so just under 4 inches of handle length. And finally, the grip area here is about 3 1/4 inches, which doesn't quite, okay? It kind of lets me get 4 fingers on, but just barely. If I go up into the choil, then it is a little more comfortable. The knife weighs in at this size. By the way, this is a small knife, so I wouldn't expect it to be heavy, but only 2.4 ounces, which is pretty darn good. Okay, so that is actually rather impressive. The blade here is S35VN with a beautiful satin finish. I've got to say, I do love this blade. It's just simple and functional and beautiful. Really, really big fan here. I love the choil. We've got a high flat grind, not quite a full flat grind, but this is basically going to perform like a full flat grind. Really, really thin behind the edge, only 17 thousandths. We've only got just under 1/8 of an inch blade stock anyway, so this is going to be a fantastic, fantastic slicer. S35VN is the steel on this guy. And of course, S35VN is a great steel. So you're going to get great edge retention and corrosion resistance out of that. Overall, guys, the blade here is really, really nice. I mean, there's not a lot to say. It's a fairly simple drop point blade with a flat grind. Lots of belly here. Really, really functional. Really, really attractive. Again, if this knife was just 3.5 inch, if this blade was just 3.5 inches, I would be totally in love with it. I guess the one issue or complaint, minor complaint that I do have is you actually lose a fair bit, or you lose some cutting edge because of the choil here. So you only end up with 2 13/16 on the cutting edge, which, you know, and actually I would have liked to see this choil just a teeny bit bigger because it's quite tight for my finger. My fingers fit, but just barely. And someone with really big sausage fingers, you know, you might have a hard time fitting it in there. Even I have to sort of do a half hold, so you can sort of see how part of my finger is not in there to avoid from getting cut. That said, I still like the fact that the choil is there. And look, guys, this is a very Ferum Forge flavored knife. You just look at it and you go, yeah, if you scaled it up, it would be like most Ferum Forge sort of footprints. They tend to like this overall theme. And I do too. And so that's, so if it was scaled up, as I say, that choil would be just a teeny bit bigger. What about the action? Well, this is a titanium liner lock, okay, flipper only, and the detent is really, really nice. When I first started reviewing We Knives, I used to complain quite a bit that their detent wasn't often strong enough. This guy is really, really nice, and it's smooth as silk, typical what we are now used to seeing from We Knives. So I've got to say, very, very nice action. I do want to point out one thing though. If you take a close look here, there's no stainless steel lock bar insert, which, I mean, it's not the end of the world. I have lots of knives and have had lots of knives that don't have it. It would have been nice to see, but I'm sure they wanted to keep the price point down. And this guy is fairly affordable. I can't tell you exactly what they cost, but it's not going to break the bank to buy one of these. And so for the quality that you're getting, I think the value is definitely there. I know this isn't normally the place for a value discussion, but I thought I'd just throw that in since we're kind of talking about action. And the action here is as good as some really expensive knives. It's comfortable. It flips out fast. As you can see, the detent is dialed right in. No blade play, but I will offer this one complaint. This is really more of a construction complaint, but we're going on to the handle design anyway. You can't access the pivot screw with these scales on. And I feel like that was a bit of a fail. It's not impossible to take them off. In fact, they pop off quite easily. And I did have to adjust the blade on this one. And so if you have one of these and you do need to adjust the blade, just know you're going to have to take the scale off. Then you can get at the pivot, and it is on the right side of the knife. So where the clip is for right hand tip up carry, that's the same side that the pivot is on. So that's the side to take off rather than waste your time pulling this one off like I did and find nothing. All right. So yeah, action is definitely nice. The only thing I would like to have seen there is a stainless steel lock bar insert, but if the titanium is properly hardened, that's not an issue at all. All right, so moving on to the handle. This handle is very attractive. I love just sort of the minimalist design. I like the way that they've done just these nice plain G10 handles. It's very comfortable in hand, other than the fact that I don't quite have enough room for all my fingers. The choil, again, is a little small, but overall, again, the handle is well done. I like the construction. They've chosen just that single standoff there at the back. Really nicely done. It is a reversible deep carry clip. Again, I think that's really, really nice. This knife is quite small, and you know, to me, a smaller knife doesn't need a deep carry clip as bad as a larger one, but it's there, and I do appreciate the fact that they've, you know, taken that effort to make this carry just a little deeper and be a little less noticeable. I think this is a great like office carry out in public. No one is going to be overly upset by this knife. At least I can't imagine anyone being upset. I've already mentioned the fact that I'm not in love with the way they've got the pivot covered up. And overall, again, the knife is quite good in hand. So let's get to some comparisons. I've got a couple of different comparisons for you. Let's start with a Para 2, since everyone is familiar with that. You can see this is quite a small knife. And if you like that, if you feel like the Para 2 is just way too big for you to ever carry, then you should be appreciating this guy. Let's see, here's a knife that's a little more comparable in size. This is a mini Griptilian, and I know lots of people really love the mini grips. I'm not a fan. They just, again, feel too small for me, but this should give you a pretty good handle. And that means I think these are close enough that if you really like the grip and you find the mini grip is good in your hand and it just works well for you, I think you'll be rather pleased with the Massdrop, or with the Ferum Forge Massdrop Gent. Here is a Spyderco Sage 4. Again, a very familiar knife. Similar blade length on these guys. Sort of similar philosophy where you've got the choil there. Now, I will say the Sage is much more hand-filling to me and a little more ergonomic. Largely because of it being much more hand-filling. So if you like a knife of this size, but the ergos aren't what you're into, this would be another great option, something from the Spyderco Sage lineup. What else have we got? Here's a Kaiser Quarto. Again, you know, titanium frame locks on the smaller side, still quite a bit bigger. This is about the smallest knife that I would want to carry. Have we got some other smaller stuff? Not really. I've got an American Lawman here. I've got the Skaha, which largely is here because it's got such great action, and it is on the smaller side of knives that I appreciate. Let's pull in here the Kaiser Tangram Santa Fe as well. And again, this is a smaller knife, too small for me, but a lot of people I think have this. These are pretty popular right now, so that may give you an indication of what you're dealing with for size. And then finally, let's go ahead and throw in the Cold Steel Formax. If you look here, the whole Gent can almost fit on the handle of the Formax. Okay, so those are my comparisons. I will say this, in terms of what you're getting, I think the value is definitely there on this guy. You know, all of those other options I showed you, not all of them are competitive options. Some of them are a little less, some of them are a little more, some of them are right in the ballpark. And I would say this guy is going to perform as well as anything that I've shown you. It is very, very good as a cutting tool. I have no complaints whatsoever about that. So overall, what do I think of this knife? I love, love, love this design. It's just minimalist and beautiful. I love the blade shape. I love the handle shape. I absolutely think this is a great design. I do wish it were a little bigger, but for those of you who like smaller knives, I think this is an absolute win and you will not be disappointed. Very, very good knife. Love the fact that Massdrop and Ferum Forge are doing this. And I look forward to, by the way, I've actually signed up for one of the drops, and I'm not going to remember the name of the knife now that I'm trying to think of it and tell you. But they do have a Ferum Forge collaboration coming up. I think it plans to be released in August, but I am in on that drop. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will talk to you soon.